Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and yeah, it's February. Yeah, Valentine's Day is coming up. I know. For all you lovebirds out there, we have the partner Soul Summon Pool. Honestly, we kind of knew something was coming up for couple champions inside the game. I'm gonna do a breakdown on this particular set of champion rosters that you can get, and give my 2 pennies about it, as well as some caveats, opinions about some people who are not particularly in this area. You know, it's kind of interesting, right? All right, let's see. So basically, during this event, you have a chance to acquire any of the following resources, which is basically 2 to 6 star. Yeah, it's basically from 2 all the way up to 6 star in terms of champions getting a perfect soul. It's obviously 4 to 6 for epics, and then of course 2 to 6 for legendaries. The chances for getting a legendary is 28% versus 72% of it going to an epic. So basically, you got a 1/3 chance of getting a legendary, and then from there, the chances of getting a 2-star is at its highest at 40%, going all the way down to a 6-star, which is at its lowest at 6%. So obviously, we really care about majority of the legendaries during these type of events. We're looking for specific champions at this point, whatever you're pulling for these type of events. But with that in mind, let's break it down. What does this champion pool have to offer? So we have Skull Crown and Sinesha. Solid, actually, to be honest with you, for epics. I think, in particular, where I've been noticing that their value has kind of pivoted, especially Sinesha, believe it or not, has been in, I want to say, honestly, Sin City, to be real with you. I'm going to move over here so we can kind of see a little bit more of a better feature of what's going on over there, you know? So I want you guys to be able to see the champion pool a little bit better. Atura and Kalia, we really don't care about those two. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think anybody has gone out of their way to build up these champions, and if so, it's nothing to write home about. Now, Juliana Romero, there may be something there, and I honestly think that this is probably another one that's like kind of like a throwaway. I don't really have either one of these built, and I don't plan to. Whereas, like, for Phoenix has actually been someone that still maintains relevance, and it's really because his A1 is such a heavy hitter, and getting him boosted up with a big awakening could be very valuable if you are someone who doesn't have the most pinnacle or peak or the, you know, cream of the crop for champion pools to be able to have that burst potential that someone like Phoenix can have. And obviously, partner with Talia, which kind of also negligible, is a little bit more under the radar in terms of, like, not really caring too much. Now, on the legendary side, this is where it gets a little interesting. Sir Nicholas Noel. So if you didn't participate in any of the events that allowed you to get their champion / blessings, I think we had like a respective Titan as well as a fusion for Noel, which also had Nicholas kind of tethered along to it. It's kind of inevitable that you eventually got one, right? The blessings, I don't remember, if memory serves me correctly, if Noel got a dedicated blessing event. So if you have ended up missing that or you didn't go for it, this could be another alternative way to acquire it. Now, with that being said, all my homies hate Noelle. I'm going to be real with you. She was bugged on release, and they finally got her fixed up now to a point where she's no longer a problem. However, if she's still relevant, I think that's where it gets a little bit tumultuous, because I feel like it's kind of a meme team to have Noelle in there. I mean, her aura's not bad and all that, but it's not like the end-all be-all. I think there's other champions that could do what she does, maybe even better. So she's less desirable in that regard. Manaya and Coronar, if you need a provoker, Coronar's not too bad. Manaya, I feel like, is still lackluster in my opinion in terms of like the champion and like the desire to build up one. I believe I even have one. Let's check and see if I'm on my money here. I think I have one, and I'm not excited about building her. Like I'm not going out of my way for that. Whereas like when I was climbing up and like getting my experience and getting champions for like Hydra, for example, Coronar had his place and he had his time with me there, and I think that that's something that I will always cherish. And I have them in the event I ever need them. So, you know, they're for right now, I would say, like, this entire bottom row is, I'm not going out of my... If you have a personal preference for these guys and you really like them, then I'll obviously go for it. Ultan and Oella. Now, Ultan, I'll be honest, I don't think anybody is super excited for it. I think he did just get reworked recently, and we did a breakdown on that, but it's nothing to write home too much about. I feel like it's okay. He's still, like, kind of no different than where his previous position was at in terms of value. Whereas Oella, she has her little things here and there, her little quips and crumbs that gives her some super big value. Like, I want to say she brings to the table like increased res. She was like one of the first ones to give that, along with Terminafill. She has healing, ally buff duration increases, decreased speed, and of course continuous sales when somebody starts losing a lot of HP. So very valuable as a support utility champion in general. So not too bad. Very niche still as you look at it, you know. Then you have Karuto and Yumiko. Yumiko's obviously got her value, and she's probably like one of the more top-end desirables out of this entire summoning pool for Prism jewels. Karuto is a run-of-the-mill. You know, you can kind of take him or leave him. A little bit better whenever he's in partnership with Yumiko, but in particular, he is kind of like interchangeable with a lot of other nukers, so there's not really too much craziness to worry about there in terms of like, oh my god, he is busted, you need to get him, right? Whereas Yumiko, she's kind of a plug-and-play for almost a lot of cons, both PvP and PvP. Lockout champion, being able to reset for, you know, Seer Clear teams or even G-Nut teams or whatever the teams that your heart desires. She can get you to that finish line by being able to cut off the time frame it takes for you to cycle back into your abilities. So, obviously, a really good, strong staple champion. Meta in some of the top-end teams for Hydra, obviously, and I'm not going to go down that road, but I actually wouldn't mind a higher blessing because I have a second Yumiko that I would like to build up, so not too bad there for an option. Kaja and Timid. Now, Kaja is a pretty decent booster for like speed teams if you're going to go first. She has a good aura for that particular racing. She has a cleanse. She also has that TM boost, revive. Not too bad across the board, right? Not top of the line though. Along with Timid, who has like a buff strip and a little bit of like some interchangeability with Kaja being able to kind of sync up and do his A3, which puts fear on it. It's not top of the line, but it's still something unique and it's still kind of it's not too bad, you know? I give it like a B or C tier in terms of like couples, you know? So if you have a flavor for them, you can obviously go for that if you want to. Xavier, that's one of your OG Poison Burn Exploders or Block Revive champions, I believe she is, along with Bellinor. Bellinor, actually, I've seen a lot of resurgence with the Unity Champion Final, so I could definitely see him getting some love, especially for a blessing to benefit him a little bit more in that department. So definitely not a bad nod. Not top of the line, though. Outside of that, he is kind of like your go-to for like an AoE decreased defense, I think, at this point, and then that's pretty much what you got from him, right? Whereas like Cupid is a Venus, now this changes a little bit. Venus by herself, God tier. I mean, really, really good. I did a speed blitz team with her against the event dungeon on the hardest difficulty, and she's my setup champion with decreased defensive weaken. That's AoE. Special with Pharaoh makes her phenomenal. Partnered with Cupidus, though, there's actually some really good viability there. You know, Hydra, Cupidus is a lot of AoEs from retaliation, counterattacking, especially when they're in the same party together. AoE HP burns. He gives himself increased attack. Basically, a generally good Hydra champion. There was some, and it's dated, but there was some synergy behind having Venus and Cupidus in a counterattack team for PvP, and you pretty much would just go around trying to protect Cupidus as much as possible. Very easy to counter nowadays with all the available capability of getting around stone skin or shielding and whatnot, so it's a little bit harder to kind of include that, but still a nice little nod if you're still an up-and-comer. Whereas like Sissia and Cardiel, they hold up very, very well in meta. Whether that's speed poison comps or HP burn comps, or even in Hydra, Cardiel and Sissia pretty much stand pretty hardcore. Fire Knight Hard 10, obviously, for Cardiel is really good. Hydra, like we said before, even Clan Boss, if you're going to go back to more earlier game progression. In Demon Lord, run-of-the-mill, and across the board, he's solid everywhere. Being able to cleanse and give Revive on Death. Great for Shoguns, maybe even Iron Twins to some degree if you want to speed push that. Solid. You know, really good for a couple there if you're looking for options there. But the cream of the crop of this particular summoning event is in this top row. And this is where PvP meta starts to come to life a little bit more. Siphi still holds up as one of the best supports in the game. Maybe not the top-end booster, but her utility is undeniable. Being able to punish people by sleeping them if they are over 50% turn meter with her irresistible sleep. Having a strong, solid revive. Having increased defense, increased speed, block debuff, and a little bit of a turn meter boost, all in one abilities. Really, really good. She is amongst the top of supports. Rotos, her partner. For some reason, he does not leave this meta. He is always somewhere relevant because of the fact that he is able to ignore unkillable, ignore block damage, being able to get cleansed by Siphi at the beginning of his turn because he is partnered with her. You know, any hard CC like Odin, stun, for example, that stuff does not stop him. He gets cleansed completely out and he's able to do what he's got to do, which is whack-a-mole, right? And then not to mention that he's very tanky against a lot of big burst damage. You know, you can't just one-tap him. You have to do multiple hits in order to kill him unless you're using someone like our next couple, which is Narcisse and Ancora. Effects that ignore masteries or passes and stuff like that, like Narcissus A2, is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to dealing with someone like Rotos, for example, right? So really, really strong couple in that regard. Of being able to address some of the metas, and block revive is very valuable when you don't want to have to constantly deal with Marishka's passive or people who just like to keep popping back up, you know? Think Sun Wukong as an example. Narcisse is like, when you have 3 or more buffs and I kill you, you're staying down. And then, of course, Encore, which keeps the team going. I think it's the ally with the highest crit damage. Keeps she transfer all CC to him. And then, of course, if Narcisse is on the team, there's even more interaction, more value out of that from her passive. She's really, really strong in that regard. And being able to get enough blessings to keep her going in terms of survivability, there's a lot of different ones that have value. Makes her a really, really strong component for being able to handle a lot of control, right? And also being able to enable cooldowns with her A1, cleansing and shielding and protecting on her A2 makes her really solid with a speed aura that lasts for a very, very long time. Now, with that being said, should you go for this particular summoning pool event? I think the answer is yes and no. Yes, if you have access to the champions, that's the first precursor. You shouldn't go for any of these types of Prism events if you don't have a particular champion that you're using pretty aggressively. Then the next thing I want to keep people in mind when it comes to doing these summoning pool events is the level of competitiveness that the value they bring in a competitive environment. So, for example, I consider competitiveness to be in 3 things. 1 is Arena, 2 is Clash, and then that spreads out into 2 subset categories, which is Hydra Clash and Chimera Clash, right? So some of these champions have value in some of those areas. Some of them have value in all those areas. And then, of course, some have value in none of these areas. So, in particular, I would prioritize it based off Arena being the most valuable in terms of the, like, min-maxing stats. Whereas, like, Hydra and Chimera Clash, you can kind of get away with not being fully awakened. Obviously, it's a nice quality of life investment or adjustment. But it's not the end of the world if you don't have the highest blessing on those champions for those particular Clash metas. Now, with that being said, obviously it's better, but in PvP, the threshold and the ceiling and the margin of error that you're allowed to be relaxed in is a lot lower. It's a lot higher, excuse me. So you can't really it's lower. Sorry, I misphrased that. But you basically don't have as much of a margin of error that you're able to squeeze in. You can kind of work around some things, but the less progressed and less invested your champions are in terms of being perfected, the more you're at risk of maybe failing an offensive attack or failing against battling someone in live arena, and that could be very detrimental. Also, with Awakening being as powerful as it is, the 6th tier is super strong for being able to be very RNG invoking to give you the chance to turn the tides against your opponent. So in that particular case, depending on what your focus is and what champions you're looking to invest towards will dictate the value of whether or not this Prism of Jewel event is going to be worth it. For me, my Narcisse, my Encore, my Siphi are all max. My Rhodos is at 5-star out of 6 stars. I don't have a Cardio. My Sissia, I believe, is not really used as often, so it's not really much of a problem for me. Cupidus, I believe, is at a 4 or a 5-star. And I believe my Venus is also somewhere pretty close accordingly. Let's take a look here. Venus is at 5. Let's find Cupidus real quick. And I'm using my account as a reference point. Mine is also at 5. So, just off of the top 2 rows alone, I'm already kind of like, well, I'm almost done. I don't have any Bellinor Zabias. Timid, Kaja don't really use or get involved with, particularly on my account. Yumiko is probably one that I have ready to go in terms of a champion that wouldn't mind getting some love towards, which would be my second one right here that you can see. She's only got 2 stars out of 6, whereas my other one already has the 6 out of 6. So there's a little bit of value there for me. And then the rest kind of falls off, like, you know, pretty much in terms of relevance. So for me, if I'm going for any of the champions that I do have access to, like Rhodos, Venus, Cupidus, to name a few, it's only for 1 literal star. And that chance is a 6% chance if I hit the 28 on a legendary. And I feel like that makes it not worth for me. However, if you're someone who has a bunch of these champions that are not maxed at 6, particularly the PvP ones, like Siphi, Rhodos, and Korra King, and they're like maybe 4-star or lower, this is a great chance to boost this back up because it's so focused in targeting and being able to acquire this many champion, like a specific champion's soul. So there's big value there if you're looking to max out some of these champions. So in summer, we have 4, 8, 12, and then from there, it's 16 plus the 4 is 20, right? So you have 20, 1 out of 20 of it hitting the particular champion you want, and then from there, it's the varied percentage, and to get to like maybe a 6-star percent, you know, it's 6% there. So I would say set your expectations accordingly. But I also do think that that's my reasoning about whether or not you should or should not pull on this particular Prism event. I am in a blessed situation where most of these champions that I have access to, that I care about investing towards, they're pretty much where they need to be at. I wouldn't mind Rhodos getting a 6-star. I wouldn't mind getting a 6-star for Yumiko, but it's not the end of the world if I don't go for it. And the rest of the pool, which is what could likely be the case for me getting it, could be a bit of a drop. Now, with that being said, to flip it from another perspective, the ability to get at the very least close to like a 3-star or higher is not too bad. 15% is a little bit more kind of low on the lower side of preference, especially when you're looking at like 65% to hit over here for epics. But another way you could look at it is if you've been buying souls, like for example, I just got my Mario Split soul today. I ran out of my Eternal Essence. Now, in the event he pops up with a 6-star, I'm not ready, right? Or if that Roto shows up, or, you know, insert all those other champions that I care about that are not 6-star, that are right there ready to go, I'm not ready, right? By investing into the souls here, I could get stuff, and even if I get like 6-star for a champion I don't care about, like Ultan, for example, I could yeetus and delete it, and then that's an extra, you know, 1,000 extra currency in terms of the Eternal Soul coins that could be converted into Essence. So it's another way that you can kind of flip what would technically be a negative into a positive. Or, and another way, you could also just hold on to those coins if you're in a safe spot with Essence, and you can convert that into Immortal Soul Stones if you get like lesser than 4, and then of course 4, 5, and 6, maybe as you get higher, you can start maybe investing towards Eternal Soul Stones if you so choose. Now, with that being said, you guys let me know, are you guys planning on investing in this particular Altar of Souls? I think the answer for me is going to be no. I'm good. But if you are someone who has access to some of these champions and they're not maxed out and they're like sub 4 stars, maybe even 5 stars, could be like you're at 4 or 3 roughly, this would be a good chance to consider going forward. Even if you have like one of them that's like a 5 almost out of 6 and the rest of them are kind of in that lower bracket, it's still good because like what if you do hit that 6-star? That saves you so much resources down the road for Eternal Essences that you can kind of maybe pivot towards another champion now. So it kind of progresses that a little bit, and that's where focused summoning with Eternal Soul Stones could be pretty good. Who knows? Anyways, with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if you guys are going to participate in there. If you did pull, let me know. Share what you got. I am probably going to farm the Sand Devil event, and I wanted to talk to you guys about that too. There is an active Sand Devil tournament right now where if you can continue to gradually collect enough points at 6,300 at the very end, you'll get enough for at least 1 summon. I don't believe there's any other events currently active right now where you're going to be able to acquire that. There may be some in down the road that maybe with a Dungeon Diver event or some other associated event. I think it's less likely the case. I think you're going to get that 1, and then you pull, and that's it. If you so happen to just go for it and you get anything out of it, let me know what you get in the comments. I'm very curious. Anyways, with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, and as always remember, stay ascended.
Quick to get the